Hope Cook here at the Drop-In Studio in Washington, D.C. I have Andrew Masteros. He's a DermPA who has been doing clinical trials, and today he gave a talk on how to get into clinical trials and what clinical trials can do for your career. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so why should we get involved in clinical trials?
Yeah, so ultimately, I think there's a lot of reasons of why clinical trials can be imperative, but ultimately, one of the main reasons is that it really elevates not only your personal platform, but it elevates the platform of APPs and PAs in general. Ultimately, there's a black hole in terms of APPs that are investigators and research, primarily PIs. And there's not necessarily a strong reason for that. There's nothing in language that says that we shouldn't be in those roles. And ultimately, the ones that are in those roles are also seen as the experts, also seen as the people that are writing the publications and are on podiums. And so there's this glass ceiling that's there that doesn't necessarily have to be there, and we can break through it. So ultimately, research and clinical trials helps us do that. But there's so many other potential opportunities that you can build off of just doing a clinical trial and being an investigator that isn't really well defined or understood until you're actually doing it.
And so how do you get in? Do you get in on the ground floor by starting out in a different role in clinical trials?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities. So ultimately, say you're in a practice or joining a new practice, and you want to be involved in research. Ultimately, you're trying to look for a CP that already is involved in research or has a funding source or a clinical site established. But ultimately, if you don't have that, you need to join with somebody that has the proper vision, that has the pathway, and has the passion to be your mentor, and that will put their neck on the line for you. Meaning, my CP had to put his foot down and say, this young man is going to be a sub-I in this trial. And if he's not going to do that role, then we're not going to continue on as a site for you. And then once that happened the first time, then it kind of rolled after that. So ultimately, you need that inroad through your CP likely and have that support. Or you can go to established sites, hospitals, universities, academic centers. They have established sites. It's more of an inroad for you. But outside of that, hypothetically, say you're already in a practice, you decide you actually want to do research. You can actually find freestanding research centers that aren't attached to your practice. Obviously, I make sure it's not clinically or you're not contractually able to do that. But ultimately, you can actually do research with other providers that aren't actually in your practice. So there's totally different how many different ways that we can do this. But the opportunities are there. But what's really the roadmap, and how can you get the exposure necessary to make those network connections, then to uncover all those opportunities?
Okay, and for people who don't know what a CP is or a PI.
So a CP would be a collaborating physician or supervising physician. I choose to use the word collaborating.
Okay.
A PI would be a principal investigator. Sub-I would be a sub-investigator. And typically, APPs have been cornered into the sub-I role, which is great. It gives you the role as an investigator. You can leapfrog that into being a PI. But ultimately, for us, we should be striving to be the leads on these when appropriate. And so being a principal investigator is something that when you actually search that in databases, very few results come forward. We're talking about PI and PAC.
Yeah.
And why does that happen? A lot of different reasons, but there's barriers there that we definitely can break down, but we need people to want to, but also have the support behind them to do that.
And what sort of database would you look in if you're interested in this?
So database-wise, if you're interested in research, you're probably not going to find opportunities there. Database is just going to show you research articles on what's existing out there. In terms of what you would want to do is you're going to leverage your network in terms of your industry partners. So your MSL, your medical science liaison, potentially your TLL, your thought leader liaison. Ultimately, those two people are critical for your advancement in one, the medical side, and one on the professional side. And actually, they both kind of feed each other. But in terms of your MSL, if you have conversations with those roles and you let it be known that, hey, I want to be involved in research, my collaborating physician is not, or we are not an established site, they can help connect you to people that are doing research in the area of your choice or a field that you're interested in. they can network with you for the appropriate people, or they can put you on a paper potentially, get you involved on their end, so you can utilize and leverage your industry partner relationships in order to get that done.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you could pick a clinical trial about a subject that you're interested in.
Sure, absolutely.
And then I would think that you would also learn more as a result of being involved in it, and it would behoove your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And so if everything feeds each other, so as a clinical researcher, not only will your site and your clinical acumen in terms of research end continue to build as time goes on, but ultimately it's going to feed into your clinical practice, meaning you are going to be utilizing these cutting edge therapies. You're going to be on the cutting edge yourself. You are going to be able to provide things that maybe others won't because they don't have the experience with them, or they haven't seen them work with. You are actually seeing them work with clinical trial patients. So it really enhances your clinic. Not only that, but you build a referral base.
Yeah.
So as you're doing this really cool work in that area, the region, whatever you are, the referral network of people sending you patients because, hey, we've reached an end with so-and-so with all the therapies. What else you got? Like what trials you're doing? That is a huge thing. So ultimately the research and the clinical practice, they all feed each other. So as one goes up, usually the other will go up as well.
Wow. So what's the downside?
Time.
Yeah.
Time is the currency. Ultimately, this is hard to do. It's hard to manage because you're juggling all of it, right? If you're in clinical practice 4 days a week, are you adding an extra day to do research? Are you building it into your current day? And then how are you doing that? And what's the opportunity cost you have of not seeing patients versus seeing a research patient? Because ultimately, there is a revenue associated with trial patients. And there's a revenue associated with being an investigator as well. But what is that in comparison to what you're actually bringing in on your clinic side? And does it make sense to cannibalize that? So there's a lot of decisions you have to make. The catch also is that not everyone has the roadmap to doing this, meaning it's very hard to accomplish these as step by step. A lot of times there's barriers put in at each individual step of this, and all the roads you took to get there in terms of building your network, it all comes back to, do you have enough bandwidth to actually do this? Can you?
No.
We have a life outside of derm. We have families, we have kids, we have friends, we have things that we want to do, we have things we want to explore. Do we have the time to do this? And can your team handle it? Can your actual physical team, your MAs and your staff in your own office, can they take extra time off their schedule to help you manage your own day? Because I can tell you, when I have a full patient load and a full clinical trial load, I'm coming in pretty hot.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of things that we're trying to juggle. So there's a lot of not downsides, but cons to this. And even just cost to building it. You need personnel, you need a site, you need space, you need supplies. Those are things that if you don't have it readily available, maybe you're finding a developmental partner, but they're going to take a piece of the pie potentially. So there's so much that you have to consider here.
So it sounds like you need to be interested in research.
Correct.
And tell us how it can help you further on in your career. Like how can it add to whatever you're hoping to achieve further down?
Yeah, so ultimately you have to be interested, because no one's going to do it for the money.
Yeah.
And no one's going to do it. Granted, it could be a significant amount, but no one's going to do it for that. And no one's going to do it for just cachet, because it takes a lot of work and you have to be involved. You have to be into what you're actually doing emotionally. You have to care about what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to show through. So those opportunities, I think everything feeds on each other, meaning like if you're in research, that can lead to publications. Publications can lead to you speaking at conferences. You can be on podiums. You're presenting your poster.
Look at you now. You're getting interviewed.
Exactly. It can put you on the stage. Not only that, but you're seen as an industry expert because you are doing publications and research. You're doing clinical trials. Therefore, your relationships with an industry elevate because you are seen as what we call like a KOL, like a key opinion leader. You're going to be utilized for ad boards, advertiserial boards, for other things where they want your opinion because you are on the front lines. So it builds your business, your brand, because that's what we all are, right? We're all brands, all of us. As a DermPA, we're all a brand.
Yeah.
And whether that be on the professional side or in clinic, we are building the brand of how we treat, and then that's what we're packaging to people. So ultimately, that brand then is going to feed then all these other opportunities. But that research gives you a certain credibility and validity and cachet behind your name, because you are pumping out guidelines, but potentially protocols, new therapies that ultimately can affect how we all practice. That's really powerful.
And it can also spice up your career if you've grown a little stagnant.
Absolutely, 100%. It adds another element in. Not only that, but it adds that other passive income in too, because we're all looking for ways where we can maybe do less, but keep our income the same, right? So this is also a way where you can do that, but it adds an element of difference to what we're doing. How often can we see the same disease state day in and day out, and day in and day out, especially if we're seeing 30, 40, 50, 60 plus patients? That's a lot to take.
Yeah.
So juggling that with, say, one clinical trial patient and really seeing the really cool side about new advancing therapies, that's interesting.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want clinicians to know who may be interested in clinical trials?
Ultimately, I think it's just, if we start with the passion behind what we want to do in terms of being an investigator, my main message outside of what we talked about, or actually just to further what we talked about, it's really just to take the meeting. And what I mean by that is this: take the meeting is figuratively and metaphorically speaking. When you have the opportunity to network into different opportunities, take the meeting with someone that's coming in. Ultimately, when someone wants you to meet somebody, that is like probably a C-level person, a CEO level person, or a decision maker that you are having a free meeting with to potentially be a potential mentor or somebody that you can utilize down your career. Take the meeting with your own career, meaning like, we have the opportunity to further expand ourselves every time that we step in that clinic room. We have that opportunity. Take the meeting, expand yourself. And if you want to do it through industry or you want to do it through research, all these opportunities feed the other. And one example of this is, like, I had in there in my talk a slash line. Initially, you can be a clinician seeing patients. You can also be a researcher. You can be an investigator. You can be a promoter. You can be all of these things. We have the opportunity to do that. For the love of everything, let's take advantage of it, because we are so unique. And so if we have the passion behind us, take the meeting, utilize your network, and really build it.
That's powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hope Cook signing off on Dermcast Live.